Okay, I think we are live. Excellent.
Hello, Katja. Hi.
Hello, Sean.
How are you?
Hello.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, good to see you. Excellent. I hope everyone can hear us well. I will pause the music and I already have some comments coming in.
Wow, that's quick.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody's very quick on the draw.
Yes,
What do we have?
We've got Yulia joining us, or rather tuning in from Ukraine. This is so great.
Hello, Yulia. Welcome. Welcome to
Welcome.
Charwell.
Excellent. Okay,
Our virtual open day.
I suppose we may officially begin. And firstly, since we were testing our slides with Mr. Murphy, we need to go back to our first slide for me to do a little introduction. So, welcome to Cherwell College, Oxford, and our virtual open days. It's our first one in 2025. And I'll be your host for today. And since it's our very first session, I would like to introduce the college a little bit before we delve into the A-level politics with Sean Murphy. So before we begin, just to very briefly to outline what educational courses we offer and also what the college does. So the college has an established presence in Oxford for over 50 years now. And we are very fortunate to be located in the very heart of Oxford, surrounded by such landmarks as Schmollian Museum, which is actually the first public museum in the world, and the Oxford Union, who happen to be our neighbors, and it's one of the oldest debating societies. And Mr. Murphy can talk more about that and our link with the Union. And also the Bodleian Library, which is the oldest in Europe. And of course, the constituent colleges of the University of Oxford. So there are 39 of those. On the other hand, Cherwell College, we are a pre-university tutorial college focusing on students primarily aged between 15 and 19. And our main programs of studies are 1 year IGCSE and also 1 to 2 year A-level courses. So once again, we will talk a bit more in detail, hopefully, about those programs. And I will be able to explain about some of the course offers, which we're rolling out from September. So we'll come back onto that. But it's important to note what makes Cherwell unique amongst some of the mainstream schools. And I think Sean will probably agree with me that it's mainly the method of teaching and the way that the system of teaching practiced at Cherwell very much mirrors that one of the Oxford and Cambridge universities. So what I mean by that is that the lessons are conducted on a one-to-one basis or in tutorial pairs or in very small groups. And when I talk about small groups, those are really small groups. So we're talking about 3, 4, 5 individuals in the classroom. So you can imagine the amount of the individual and attention is paid towards each and every student at the college. So obviously, it helps to provide rounded education and more bespoke and personalized educational experience for our students. So this is something which we're trying to preserve, and this is something that's quite unique to us as a pre-university college. Another thing, before I introduce Sean formally, is I would like to mention that we are also the college with its own boarding facilities. So I have some slides to show here. So we spoke about Ashmolean, we spoke about some of the landmarks, and this is our boarding house, Cherwell House. And this is something which is quite, again, unique to provide the halls of residence boarding facilities right in the city of Oxford to our students, so that they are living in comfort whilst obviously studying towards their A-level or GCSE examinations. So this is something which is not, as I say, due to the location and due to the city, we've managed to have this particular offer for students. So enough of this. Let me move on. Oh, yes. So the learning page. You can scan a QR code. There will be a lot of QR codes. I've recently learned how to do them. So this will take you to our learning page where you can learn more about the courses which we do. And those are mainly A-level, as I mentioned, GCSE, in particular, 1-year GCSE, because we are primarily focusing on post-16 education, and also some of the summer pre-sessional courses, academic summer pre-sessional, and Easter revision. So feel free to scan a QR code or enter that link, and you can read more. Okay, so now moving on to our main guest, and this is, of course, Mr. Sean Murphy. I'm incredibly excited to introduce you to him. He's our senior politics and history tutor at Cherwell College, Oxford, and he has a very diverse career in education, media, and research. So originally, Sean holds a degree from in history and politics. However, he's obtained a master's in international security studies, and his journey to academia, one may say, was preceded by a career in media industry, where he served as a researcher and producer at various television network channels, and most notably BBC. So the moving on from there, Sean also authored a book, which is called, and I think I have it here on the slide as well. Yes, here it is.
That's nice, Clark.
Do you recognize your book, Sean?
Nice promotional. Thank you for that, Catherine.
You're most welcome.
I'm blushing now.
So the book is called, as you can see, Letting the Side Down, British Traitors of the Second World War. And obviously, Sean can talk more in detail, but it explores aspects of British fascism through the life motivations and the ultimate fate of the 200 or so British traitors and Nazi collaborators during the Second World War. As a senior history and politics tutor, Sean consistently inspires his students to explore the complexities of historical analysis and modern politics, which is never static. So, but his main interest includes the 19th and 20th century British history, rise of European dictators, the Second World War, the Cold War, American foreign policy, and Anglo-Irish relations. So, as I say, we are focusing in this session primarily on politics, but Sean also teaches the 19th and 20th century history at the college. So, enough of me talking. Sean, welcome on board, and thank you so much for joining today. I know how busy you are and that you are teaching in between our session.
Thank you, Katy, for a lovely build-up. I hope I can live up to expectations after that.
You will. It's worth mentioning that Sean and I, we also did a podcast together. So we should probably resume those podcast recordings as well.
Absolutely.
So to kick us off, and just to kind of keep on top of our agenda, which is here on this slide. So we will, as I say, we will try to cover all the key points, but then there will be an option for Q&A, and obviously we never know where the discussion leads us. So, but we will try to stay on track, and we've got, as I say, we've got an hour in our disposal. But to kick us off, my first question, Sean, would be if you could take us through the A-level politics syllabus and options,
Yes.
focusing on your preferred exam board, because obviously we know that there may be numerous options, numerous exam boards, but something what you favor and what you teach at level. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Well, of course, studying politics is a great way of developing our understanding of the world. The processes that govern us all revolve around the world of politics. For academic purposes, particularly obviously the importance of the A-level, there are quite a few options available. Now, all of the A-level, whether it's the Edexcel examination board or the AQA exam board, all start with a study of British politics. So what does that involve? It's kind of what I call the nuts and bolts of British politics. By that, I mean the Prime Minister, the role of the Cabinet, Parliament, great building, what happens in Parliament, what effect do debates in Parliament have on the government and on British society more widely. We look at the role of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court have to decide often what is legal, what is lawful. Is the legislation passed by the government, does it come up to the standards required of our justice system? And so the court is a very important lever in that respect. So Parliament, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, the court, and all this is wrapped around, if you like, the British Constitution, which is kind of unwritten. Most of it's not written down. The British Constitution has evolved over the centuries, and the British Constitution determines the way we are governed. And when I say we, the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, of course, and even regional government. We now have mayors, as you probably know, they're elected mayors in various parts of England. And this is all based on the British Constitution, which is ever changing, ever evolving. So we look at the sources of the Constitution and what makes the Constitution tick. Give you an example. I mean, obviously, a lot of laws are passed and they are written down, or they are statute law, and people are expected to follow the laws. They can read the laws, they can read them up in books. And that's part of our Constitution, a very important part. But another part is conventions. Conventions, I don't mean a business convention, I mean a convention, the kind of way of doing things which are accepted as the norm, which kind of, in a way, if the British Constitution is a wall, the conventions are kind of like a cement. I'll give an example of that. Prime Minister's questions. We've all seen this on TV, where the Prime Minister comes to the House of Commons to take questions from the opposition and from other parliamentarians. That happens now once a week. It used to be twice a week. It used to be 15 minutes on a Tuesday, 15 minutes on a Thursday. It's now just once a week. That was agreed by all political leaders, and that has become a part of how we debate politics. As I say, not written down, not hard and fast, that can change. Another convention, if a minister of the Crown, if one of the cabinet ministers makes a big error, a grave political or social error, he or she should resign. Again, there's no rules on this, not hard and fast rules. But again, it's accepted that if you get your job wrong, particularly important job like cabinet minister, if you make an error which it can't be redeemed easily, then you resign, you offer your resignation. And so these are just a couple of examples of the British Constitution at work. We also have referendums, of course, where people, the public can vote on a particular issue, whether it's Brexit or devolution. And again, that's kind of been added to the Constitution more recently. Referendums are new. I remember the first one we had, should we stay in the European Economic Community, 1975. Yeah, I voted in that. I was 18. I voted in that referendum. So the Constitution is evolving. It's a very important part of the UK politics. So having talked about that area, we have to talk about the other side of politics, which is, what is politics? How are people politicized? How do people take part in politics? Apart from voting, you can take part in politics by going on a march, wearing a sweatshirt with some party name on it. You could call in a radio station. You could write your local newspaper with a letter. How people participate and why they participate in politics is something that's another part of this A-level syllabus. And of course, from there, from participation of the individual, we then take it into group participation, pressure groups, interest groups, People join a trade union to help protect their employment rights, or you can join a cause group like Greenpeace, for example. So it's a way of participating in a group which has the effect of groupthink, a grouping approach to how our politicians might react to what we have to say, whether we say it individually or within a group. So that's important for voting behavior and for joining a political party, of course. People do join parties, another way of participating. So participation, why people get involved in politics, how they vote, where they live might determine where they vote. Their ethnic background may determine where they vote, their age, all these factors come into the other side of the UK political syllabus that we're doing. Nuts and bolts first, and then the political behavior of people and how that's manifest through participation in democracy.
So this is mainly on the UK politics.
Yes, yes.
But as a part of the syllabus, you normally cover, and you have an option, I believe, either American or global politics.
Absolutely right. Yes. So for the American option, we basically look at the American system of government, and we do exactly the same as I've just said. We look at the Congress, the nuts and bolts of the American Constitution, very different to ours. We look at the role of the president, whoever the president happens to be, the important American Supreme Court, who, like our court, uphold the rules and what is legal and what isn't legal, or in the case of America, what is constitutional and not constitutional. And again, on the American side, apart from the politics and the government of Washington, we look at, again, participation. Americans love to get involved. They love to get involved in politics. Every American belongs to some group, some participatory group. I mentioned writing to an MP, they write to congressmen, they join groups. There are being a huge country, there are massive groups. The American Association of Retired Persons, there's people over 40, and I think it's like 50 million people belong to that. House Angels on motorbikes, these are part of a group because they're very vocal about the roads they use. Are they being charged for using the road? Mums have a great array of pressure groups. There was the Million Mum March in America, where 1 million mums marched against the use of guns. So Americans are very much, more than us, they very much participate at every level, state level, local level, state level. There are many elections in America, many elections. And so Americans are very vocal in their participation. So that's something we cover, including political parties, the role of race in the United States, and what the states do. We have Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, devolution. In America, the states, the 50 states, are very unique, having their own rules, having their own laws, and they have their own, traveling from one state to another could almost be like visiting another country. They're so diverse, the states. And so we look at the role of states, how they function, and their position within the wider context of the Constitution. So America, we look at very much along those lines, but also we then compare that with Britain. So we compare the Prime Minister with the powers of the President. We would compare what happens in Congress compared to what happens in Parliament. We would compare political parties. What's the difference between the Labour Party here and the Democratic Party in America, for example? Obviously, the role of the president. I think President Trump is on TV, is on our TV screens every day. So we look particularly at the power of the president, because the president goes beyond just the American confines. The American president, often called the leader of the free world. So that kind of takes us neatly into global politics, which is another option. So first option is Britain with America combined.
Right.
Second option,
and this is what you normally study over a year or 2 years. So
yes,
Britain
over a
and
year
America.
or 2 years. Yeah. Obviously, over it. I mean, we offer this as a 1-year option, starting in August. Very intensive, a lot of work, but we try and motivate the students to be interested in politics. I think it's a bit like if somebody follows a particular, say, football team in the UK, that person will know the scores of the games. They might go to the match, they might watch the match, they'll know the players, they'll know how many goals they're going to get, hopefully. They'll know the weaknesses and strengths of the opposition. They'll be committed to that. They'll be committed to that football team. And politics is a bit like that. Politics is not, as I said, not written down in one place. It's not like, for example, history, which is basically a lot of it. But history, you know, you can read it up in books and magazines, articles, newspapers. But politics is constant.
It's constant. Yeah,
and we try to get people to be interested in political events. So if students, enthusiastic students, come into me at say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, they say, "Oh, have you heard about this?" And of course, I haven't heard because I've been teaching, and something's happened in America. It's on their phone. They're reacting to some news that's happening in America that affects the study that they're doing. And that is why it's so important with politics, to A-level politics, to follow the news. You have to know what's happening in the world. Not every detail, but you must have a grasp of what's happening. A bit like I mentioned the sports analogy. If you've got that, then, and you're interested in that, that means there's a very good chance you will do very well at A-level politics. Very well. I'm talking about a very high grade. Very good chance.
Thank you, Sean. I know we haven't yet spoken about the global politics option, which I hope we can come back onto it. But I think from this comment, just a follow-up sort of remark, how do we, as you're saying, politics is ever, you know, evolving in this ever-changing world. It's not that you pick up a textbook on Tutors and just, you know, like study a particular period of history. So even with the resources, what do you normally recommend students how to keep on top, apart from reading what's happening in the world, but also publications, and how their knowledge of current affairs helps them in, and how it relates to their ultimate, you know, like assessment? Because at the end of the day, they would need to take an exam, and they will be assessed in accordance with certain you know, objectives and objective criteria. So if they, let's say, give an example from the you know, from the current affairs or from what is happening presently in the world, does it actually credit them during the examination condition, or it's just a predetermined structure which they need to master? So how do you keep that enthusiasm for students to learn and explore other sources, as opposed to just sort of sticking to the rigid, you know, criteria of exams and textbook requirements?
Very good question. Yeah, we try and keep up, as I said, up to speed with what's going on. That can be through things like watching Prime Minister's Questions on TV. Social media plays a part, of course. Websites, lots of interesting websites, particularly in America. And also magazines. The obvious one is The Economist. There's a magazine called The Week. Oh, there's some nice images there. These are some images of politics. And in fact, these who focus very nicely on their catch are on books. We'll talk about the books in a second. But the magazines, The Week, The Economist, there are several blogs that are worth recommending, and keeping on top of the news, whether that news could be BBC, it could be DW, which is Deutsche Welle, the German World Service, which is broadcast in English. And the videos are constant, always on, ongoing, pretty much up to date. So the students need to take their eyes away from the textbook and looking at developments. What's going to happen? The new Labour government have been in power now almost a year. How they got on, how's it looking at the moment with the Prime Minister? Some issues that are being discussed at the moment about maybe priorities changing for him, changing his mind on certain issues. They won't be in any textbook. They've got to be accessed live on media or in a newspaper or magazine, up-to-date magazine. And this is where the student has to stretch themselves to be able to follow that, because it's not something that we can cover totally within the confines of a lesson. We encourage the students to be independent, to go looking for information. In fact, not just for politics. We encourage all our students to stretch them to be independent of mind, thinking. We want to prepare them for their next stage of their journey. And so we don't just want to get the student into the lesson. How are you? Teach a lesson. Goodbye. See you next time. We don't do that really. We like to have a link. We're in contact with the student. I want to know where the homework is, for example. And, you know, this is an ongoing, we're a community, it's an ongoing link we have. It's not a formal, you know, is at the time we've got to finish, you know, and, you know, strict and, you know, strict. And I mean, we have to, obviously students have to show us respect and we show them respect. But we're working where we want to stretch our students fully. And to go back to your question, lots of different areas, social media, magazines, the books I'm going to recommend shortly. There's no end to it. Of course, you've got to ask the question, well, how reliable is the information we're getting? What about AI? I mean, are we going to be seduced by the bad things of AI as well as impressed by the positive features? So we have to keep an eye on that, because with fake news can be a problem. I think most of our students that study politics have a fair idea about this, but we try and reinforce this. And of course, I know we're going to talk about the debate club as well at some stage, and we'll talk further about how we do that.
No, absolutely. I think it's sort of important to reiterating, because sometimes you can be teaching 16, 17, 18-year-olds that they obviously most of their news consumption now comes from the social media, but they would also need to navigate through this landscape and be able to read information from different sources and different publications and understand that there can be biased views one way or another. And in certain hotspots, I understand, for instance, like in Gaza, international journalists are not even allowed to enter. So all the information which we receive comes from just the people on the ground. So I think
absolutely. Funny enough, I mean, it's strange because the CNN effect meant when CNN came along, it meant that ordinary people can do a blog, they can do a video, they can stream live. Whereas in the old days, you would say our correspondent in Lebanon, you may have a family in Lebanon who are communicating directly with people online, on the internet, communicating with us if we're in the studio, you know, television in the studio. It's not just the news channels now. Anybody can make
up a phone and start streaming.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating, but also there are obviously challenges, because the BBC often say we cannot verify this, we cannot verify because they can't. But we have
they
to
don't have a person on the ground actually.
Yeah, we have to try. I mean, obviously I've worked in the media myself, and so I try to always, the question is, well, what does it mean? What's the impact? Is there an impact? Where's it come from? Is it valid? Why isn't it valid? Could it be valid? What's the follow-up? How do we know? How do we prove? Can we prove? Keep probing these questions all the time and not take anything for granted. And that means, of course, the teacher, myself, of course, I can be wrong sometimes. I can say, well, that is a trusted source, and then we find out it isn't a trusted source. So it's particularly with the coming of AI, you have to be very careful what's true and what isn't true. And you know, people say, oh, when information changes, I change my mind. Fine, but then what happens if the information changes again to change your mind again? So we've got to be very careful about information that we are processing.
Sticking to some principles.
For politics, and I think for everything.
I know, for instance, there is even a lot of like volunteer organizations and communities like Bellingcat, the which conduct online investigations. And when the war in Ukraine started, for instance, obviously we know what the people on the ground are saying, but then it takes them 1 or 2 days to verify this information through various satellite images and everything. So, but it's just then gives credibility to what is shown on the news. And as I say, it's I suppose to young people who are still maybe subject to some social media influence, it's just important to reiterate that do not completely exclude, but do please be wary of and read widely. And
absolutely right, particularly for global politics, which of course is all about the things like global warming, human rights, the emergence of new emerging countries like Brazil, the tensions between India and Pakistan, global politics, and of course, it never turns off. On Sunday, British politics tends to go quiet on a Sunday because the weekend the Parliament's not sitting, but it never switches off with global politics. There's something happening, whether it's the Middle East, the Far East, Ukraine. There's always something going on in global politics, and that's why it's a very challenging subject to teach if students take that route rather than the American route. By the way, the global is not comparative. With the British and American, we compare the systems. With the global path, we don't. We just have the British politics, as I explained, and then the global is a different aspect of politics. But we do bring into both these, I should have said, to both these modules, units, we have ideologies. The students study socialism, liberalism, conservatism, and then they get a choice of something. They can choose feminism, anarchism, nationalism. So quite a lot of isms in there, giving the students a chance to look at the history of ideas. Because when states collide, collapse, attack each other, students can say, "Oh, wasn't that? Didn't Hobbes talk about that? Didn't Hobbes was writing about society in the English Civil War?" And you can adopt some of what Hobbes was writing to the conflict. He wasn't writing particularly about a British situation, but you can apply Hobbes to some of these global clashes and regional clashes and why they're happening and what it means. So, it's the same with any thinker. You can bring in John Stuart Mill for liberalism, Karl Marx for a Marxist analysis. So, I think the ideology is a very useful part of this A level. It's compulsory; they have to do ideologies. Students have to do ideologies, and I think it's an important thing to back up what the other modules, the American module and the global module, are bringing. Because, of course, in the case of America, land of the free, the founding fathers, independence, we assume, and historians tell us, on the whole, it's founded on liberal principles, the division of power, the division of the three main aspects of the Constitution: Congress, the President, and the Court. Is America such a liberal country anymore? Does it have the liberal values? Something we look at, were the founding fathers and the people who put ideas into the founding fathers who were reading the ideas of people like Montesquieu, Mill, have they adapted that? Is that what America is now? We approach it based partly on what the underlying ideologies are. So ideology is important to the study of politics.
I suppose it helps with the understanding of some of the root causes of current conflicts and political events, although not necessarily with all what is happening in the world, because and we can see that obviously the Trump administration, how they maybe sometimes sort of interpret in their own way their role as the leaders of free world and the democracy.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're correct. I mean, I just said 30 seconds ago about liberalism. I mean, the liberal view is, the liberal approach is that democracies don't go to war with each other. Democracies don't fight each other. Now, I don't want to exaggerate things, but of course, Donald Trump is talking about taking control of Greenland.
Yeah. And not just,
which is part of the Danish, is linked to Denmark. It's part of liberal democracy. So the liberal democracies don't go to war. They hardly conflict, but there is a lot of conflict around now between some of these liberal societies. And so thinkers in the past would not have dreamed of this happening.
And in global politics, apart from the obviously, so do you cover the international, the role of international institutions, the emerging?
We haven't had a sorry, the light's going off. If I move over here, the light. That's on again. Yeah.
Yes, it stands for lights.
The light flickered for a bit, but I'm back now. We're not in the dark. We're in brightness here. The students study the basis of the institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the role of NATO, globally, the United Nations, of course. These institutions are studied as part of they have to know what they are and what they do. And then we look at other regional components, the European Union, African states, the Union of African States, ASEAN, which is the Asian states, all global organizations which which we study to give us a global perspective. So again, you have to know the nuts and bolts of what these main institutions are. And then we look at obviously the effects of global warming, terrorism, every kind of, I often say that you imagine being in like a capsule, hovering above the earth and saying, I wonder what happens down there. I wonder what happens in that place down there. I wonder how they run. I wonder what sort of society they are. I wonder how they rule themselves, how they govern themselves. I wonder if they get on with each other on this planet. Doesn't look very big, because it isn't very big, is it, compared to others? But I wonder how, so we try and look at the world from, from afar, not too far away, but to be able to give a global view on what's happening. And that's why the global politics, even more important in a way than what I mentioned before, reading, following the news. This is why I mentioned Deutsche Welle, the German based British channel, British English speaking channel, which is very well funded, and they have reporters all over the world. And so not just the BBC and CNN and others, there are other
international outlets.
Yeah. And that helps to there's a whole South American continent as well. That helps to show students what's happening. For example, the rise of Brazil, for example, which is a relatively recent thing. How Poland makes a lot of automatic cars. I didn't know that till recently. Poland is, I think, the second or third biggest production of. Don't tell Elon Musk this, but yeah. So it's a fascinating. Global politics is fascinating, and I'm enjoying it even more this year because America is more interesting, I suppose, when there's an election. People are more interested in who's going to win. But next year, 2026, will be the midterm elections, where the Senate and the House, they will have their election. And in a way, it'll be a judgment on the presidency of Trump. They'll be voting not just for their congressman, but they'll be voting on how Trump has done. And so, American politics it is happening all the time, but global is very much as these pictures show here. Look at the personalities. Look at
all the different characters,
all different parts of the world. From Parliament to India to Italy, the White House. I mean, it's a massive thing. So I think students are interested in global, whether they're home-based students or international students. They are very interested in global politics, and I think if they are international students, it's even better because they can have that perspective of where they come from rather than just coming from the UK.
Yeah. No, thank you for this. And on just in your experience, at least this academic year, where do you see the interest is? So obviously UK politics is something like a core where any student will be required to take a UK politics element. But you had a couple of students for the global politics, how they are enjoying it, and also how in terms of how the assessment is structured. Is it mainly written exam, or there is a degree of the coursework element where they can research certain topics and come up with their overview?
Well, there's no coursework as such. It's 3 exams. The first exam is British with some ideology. The second exam is United States or global, and then there's a kind of a mixed exam. There are 3 papers, which I say either be USA or global, are underpinned by British politics and the ideologies. No coursework. 3 final examinations at A level. All exam papers worth the same marks, all worth the same, all graded the same. What the students do, particularly in the 1-year course, very important. They have to do a lot of essays, a lot of essay questions. It's no good just going straight to past papers and looking at questions. You have to get under the skin of the subject. A lot of reading, a lot of note taking, a lot of essays, videos, watching videos where relevant. The video is relevant watch it. There's no point watching video just for the sake of it. I mean, anyone can do that. So using videos wisely, keeping up with the news, but written work has to be produced because it's a year. It's full on. It's very full on. I can give students two essays a week, sometimes 3. If it's a 2-year politics, tend to start them off with 1 essay a week and a bit of research, which they will go off and research something or somebody and come back with that. Maybe watching a documentary, which we'll watch partly in the lesson, partly they watch in their own time. So we'll ease them in journey because it's 2 years. But for 1 year, when you think about it, start in August, go through academic year, they've got to hit the ground, British politics, absorb that. Yeah, and once we get into this sort of momentum, it does concentrate them because they're not thinking, oh, I've got another year, I can take it. So they just have that year. They're focused, and that is very good. The same with history, actually. That is that's a very good thing to do if they want to do it. It can be done in a year. It's tough. It's tough, but it can be done because there isn't any kind of, if you like, coursework or added bits that you have to think about.
It's just immense amount of reading and critical analysis
and note taking
yes, good quality note taking.
Yeah, they have to be able to sum up what are the 5 most important functions of the European Union, or how is the World Bank different to the IMF? Is the role of NATO still relevant? Probably more so than ever, but is it? So they have to do their research, and as I say, in the case of global politics, it's not all in the textbook. They have to look at these magazines and articles and online sites that I mentioned to complement that. Yeah, but it's an exciting topic. It's an exciting topic, politics, because it gets students asking questions, and that's what it's all about. Not just for the A level, but for all our students, to prepare our students, as I said earlier, for their next stage. And of course, we complement this with things like the Oxford Union debate and our satirical drama, Animal Firm, which I'm sure we'll mention as well.
Oh yes, this is in post-production at this moment. But fascinating and interesting, and even as I say, even at pre-university level, there is a lot of core, as you're saying, elements which students can learn about the how they are governed, how the country is governed, and do some sort of comparative analysis. Because even, for instance, in the UK, we have the separation of powers, but then there is a slight the executive branch is a bit blurred, and that's because we have a prime minister and we have the constitutional monarchy, and then how it is compared to the UK, to the American system of government. So I suppose if you're interested, if you have a student who is keenly interested in these particular areas, then obviously there is a lot of research and information which they can learn and find out as a part of their course. But moving on to sort of what happens after is, where does the study of politics lead you? Let's say if you're thinking about the career choices and career-wise, and how the subject, how you would say it complements other subjects at pre-university level. So the compatibility of taking politics with history or economics, how it helps the overall progress of the student.
Yeah, very good. No, it's a very good point. Obviously, we'll talk about it undergraduate in a moment. But in terms of career, I mean, media, law, journalism, business. I say business because students sometimes combine politics with economics, which is a nice mix, and then another subject which might be completely different. So certainly jobs in media, law, journalism would all. You'll find a lot of you'll find a lot of people in the media
transferable skills.
Have done the transferable skills which have come from studying history, politics. That is very important. But in terms of undergrad, I might just have it. Sorry.
Absolutely.
In terms of undergraduate, I must just say that if you apply to do politics degree, you have to look carefully, because politics is a very hot subject at university, and some of the top universities, LSE, Aberdeen, Strathclyde, St Andrews in Scotland, particularly strong, King's College London, Warwick. It depends with the politics. A politics degree will involve a lot of analysis of things like voting behaviour, a lot of data, which of course is useful if you've done economics, maybe geography and maths. So it's a lot of analysing political behaviour. Why do people behave in a certain way? And also ideas, the history of ideas, of course, going right back to Machiavelli and beyond that. That's politics. So what I said about global, United Nations, World Bank, NATO, that's more akin to international relations. International relations degree is where this politics may be more
useful and
more useful, because it's looking, whereas the politics straight political science involves, as I say, a lot of looking data, charts,
data oriented, and
yes, how people, it's the social side of politics. Of course, they do political ideas as well. They do everything, but that's more a straight politics degree, straight politics. But international relations, of course, covers much more of what I've been talking about. If you do a degree in international relations, that covers it a lot more. And of course, some great universities out there for that too. So Oxford being an obvious one. If you do PP at Oxford, they like it if you've got politics or history, as a background to that. You can do history and politics at Oxford. You can do history and politics at many universities, mixing the two up. So there's a lot of options for politics, and it's I think it's a degree that people will be, if they don't know what they're getting into when they do it, once they start it, they can see it's relevant to what's happening in the world. It's, as I said right at the top, international relations between countries, between people. I mean, how these people here on this screen interact with each other is so vital. Georgia Meloni, Trump, Putin, and Trump, Starmer and Ursula von der Leyen, Modi, and I know Modi had a visit from Zelensky. This is all interconnected, and so big personalities are important. And if you're studying the personalities, again, that is very good for the study of politics and international relations, particularly.
So opens quite a lot of doors and can be combined. And depending on which direction you are looking to take, I suppose it's either more into the, as you were saying, statistics-based politics, but it also can be helpful with the applying to work in some of the, international institutions as well. So I know that.
I mean, once the in terms of the 2019 election, the hiring of experts this is in British politics, that can determine, they seem to know how people are going to vote, where they're going to vote, what the issues are, where publicity should be aimed, where campaigning should be aimed, knocking on doors, where they should try and
political analysts
identify a certain type of person that will vote Labour or Conservative, for example. That's political science. That's nothing to do with Russia, Ukraine, particularly. That's to do with the political science of how people think, how they're going to vote. And it's based on lots of different complex issues. A lot of them are economic issues, obviously. There's other things at play as well.
And as we know, a lot of new roles are emerging as well. Somebody sent an article that there are even roles being introduced in for experts in geopolitical risks. So again, it is something where obviously multinational organizations are trying to hedge their risks and especially
well, they have to plan. They have to plan
high
ahead.
input investment.
Yeah, they have to plan ahead. They have to know what they're doing, where
Mm.
they're investing, and where they're. Yeah, I mean, in a way, the world is
And
going to
likewise,
slow.
like environmentally, is this
Yeah.
region going to be stable in 5 years' time, or
Yeah.
there will be a huge flood, or some?
There's been a very interesting film, drama, I'll get it right, on BBC 4 about Denmark, where the whole population of Denmark had to leave because Denmark was about to be flooded. And the families relocated to Bulgaria, Poland, all over, London, all over. And it showed how families are torn apart by something that, although we're aware of global warming, it just happened. It was going to happen. So obviously, slightly, looking to the future. They were given a very short time to evacuate. And other countries agreed on whether to take them, not to take them, on what conditions. Affluent middle-class Danes became refugees. Became very, very interesting take on one of the worst aspects, God forbid, of global warming, where a whole country has to be evacuated. It's a good watch. It's a drama on BBC 4.
We
Danish
need to
drama.
look it up.
To do with it's to do with global affairs. It's to do with global, in this case, obviously just Denmark, but the effects of global warming on that country and the fact they had to evacuate the country.
So another potential career route into the geopolitical risk roles and evaluating the events which are happening right now. But then again, how far you can plan, and this is depends on your access to resources and what do you work for a small nation state or for a big corporation, or so it's I am just mindful of time, but we would like, if possible, Sean, if you could cover very briefly some of these titles here and some of the why do you particularly recommend those?
I think I kind of chose these randomly, but in a way not randomly. Noam Chomsky, well-known professor of linguistics, written 150 books. Can you comprehend that? 150 books he's written. Linguist, philosopher. This book is a compilation of essays and speeches and interviews he's given. Very interesting man. Very interesting man. And his family are also involved. His children are also following in his footsteps. So that's a thing to spark people's interest.
In politics.
Politics. Andrew Hayward is a book, an introduction to politics, and that covers every aspect of what I've been talking about today and more. Very readable, just called Politics. Quite a big book, but very readable. The World in Conflict. This is John Andrews, who writes for The Economist. And this looks at every country individually and what's going on. So it's updated every year or so. So it's you look at exactly what's happening in every country and the effects, every global, every aspect of what's happening in. It's like an A to Z. It's a very interesting read.
If there are any students tuning in, they need to take a note of this because especially if it's updated.
It's in paperback. It's in paperback. Very good book.
I think Noam Chomsky has also got a similar title to Who Rules the World or something.
He's got that. He's got. I haven't read that, but yes, that's another book. He's prolific writer. I chose so the John Andrews is really vital. George W. Bush, for how an American president takes decisions when he's in power. Some of the tough decisions that Bush had to take. And of course, for American politics, it shows the decision making behind the scenes, if students can read this. And on Obama, more of a his personal journey into how he had to deal with his life as his time in the presidency. So those books are a good introduction. These are not A-level textbooks, a good introduction to politics.
Sean, thank you. We've got a question here from the audience. I've just pulled it up on the screen whilst we're on this slide. So Helen is asking that obviously we mentioned about current affairs and our debate club, the student-led clubs, which you support and moderate. why do you think this culture of debating, questioning, debating ideas is important in the daily life and the global context?
Well, it's good for politics students, but it's good for all students because, as you know, we have this unique link with the Oxford Union, world famous Oxford Union debating chamber, and their students help to mentor our students on how to debate properly, how to conduct a proper structured debate. But it enables our students to obviously discuss and debate issues. Some at the start don't really want to do this. They might feel shy. They might feel they don't know enough about a subject. But if you give them subjects to debate, it gets them thinking. They then start doing their own research, and they get more confident. And I think the students confident, it makes them think more. It makes them happy within themselves for their study and their academic study and other things too. And so, and it's a way we want to stretch students as well. It's a kind of an enrichment thing, getting them involved. Our debate club here, but also importantly with the Oxford Union. It's a way of keeping them up to speed of what's going on in the world, not just the geopolitics, but also issues. We discuss different issues about what's going on, debates which come and go all the time, which students can get engaged in, and I find most of them really do enjoy it. They enjoy it, debating issues. They're given a random topic. They have to think about it for a few minutes and then get into teams. And it's very, so we offer this, a lot of colleges have this, of course, but we have this unique link with the Oxford Union. And it does inspire the students, although initially they can be a bit reserved.
Intimidated.
It does get them going. And debate club, current affairs, we've just had this, we're now combining current affairs with drama. We're putting on like a satirical sketch event where it's played out in the White House, in Trump's White House, in the Oval Office. And we play out where students, this is very much ad lib, it's not scripted, where the students will play a role of Trump or the role of Zelensky or Putin, and they'll be reflecting on the world's events. We kind of reconstructed that awful event in the White House when Trump turned on Zelensky. We recreated that in a way. So it gives students a chance, like a role play. It gives them a chance to relax. It's entertaining. They have to think what they're doing as well, but it's fun. And that's it's a bit weird combining, they're not actors. I mean, most of them are not actors at all, but they take on the role and they play through what they know has happened in the world during that previous week. And that's just another side. It's another way of getting students to think, you see. So today they played the part of Zelensky, or they played the part of Keir Starmer. Everyone's been in this. Elon Musk, of course, shows his face. All the characters are there, reflected in the thoughts of our students. Something different, which I think is working. We've tried it out this year. It's worked quite well. And it's just an added, enrichment, an added bit. And also for students who aren't doing politics, you say, oh, right, that happened. Oh, I didn't know about that. A big event in the world that they probably haven't been following because they've been revising or,
busy with their...
So, well, right, well, let's have a look at that. Right, that's interesting. And so I think it gets them talking. And all this is, they say value added. I think it does add. It does add to...
It does, I think, add, and also it sharpens your analysis and critical thinking, and you hear other viewpoints as well, because one thing is reading an article or watching a news, and another thing is just debating a subject and trying to do it in a civilized way without shouting.
It has humor. I think one of the ones we've done will be available soon on to watch, but once it's edited. But yeah, it's I mean, you can't force students to do this, but you can heavily encourage them. If you heavily encourage them,
this is what we're here to do.
They might say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And then they give it a try and they say, oh, that's actually not bad. And that's what it's all about, really. But it's to say our politics students do, but all students are encouraged to.
All students, it's important to know that it's a kind of like an
it's all students. all subjects. They chip in. They come up with scenarios, and no, it's been a very worthwhile thing to do. And we're always thinking of new ways of just adding something different, something that's going to help the students, and not just something that's obvious or tedious or boring or repetitive or routine. It's not what we're about. We don't do that. We operate in Chartwell as a distinctive way of operating, and I think that's why students enjoy being here, basically.
Absolutely. No, and it's I suppose the culture of debating and talking through the issues and listening to other ideas, it reinforces the learning and also this Socratic method of teaching, where you're just not taking information for, like as a fact, but you are probing and questioning, and likewise your students may come in and they may disagree with you on certain points, but then you are teaching them to construct arguments and to relay them.
Well, yeah, they
persuasive.
they certainly disagree with me, but they're telling me things I don't know. They're telling me things, they're looking up information I don't know. How can you know everything about politics? You can't.
Absolutely.
And it's good that they're doing that. And I remember once in a class we had 4 or 5 students all on there during the middle of a lesson on their computers, and I was talking, and sometimes you think, are they paying attention? All of a sudden they all made a noise. They jumped up and went, wow. They'd all been watching BBC World, and something happened, which
breaking news.
Well, yeah, it was sad news, but they were all on it, and I was saying, sorry, what's it? Oh, and then I looked, so they were all kind of listening to me and had the world news on. It was the news channel. They weren't watching, cartoons. It was It was BBC News came on, and they all said like a chorus, "Wow, look at this! Look at this!" So it shows that they're interested. They're interested in what they're doing. I think
this is fantastic. Sean, thank you. We are moving toward the end of our presentation. We're a little bit now overrun, but it's just after 1 hour. Okay. But just to finish off, a few slides about the new course offer we are rolling out from August, September this year. You can again scan the QR code or visit our website, and likewise get in touch with us if you're particularly interested, if you're at your final year of GCSE looking for A-level entry, or you're moving from the first year to the second year of A-levels, or you're looking to retake an I-level course, or even if you're an international student based overseas and looking for entry to a UK university. So this course serves and is suitable for students aged between 16 to 19. So if you're within that age group, do please reach out and inquire. The interesting feature of this particular course offer is that it combined the traditional A-level qualification, and you can actually take politics as one of your subjects. So you would normally be studying 3 A-level subjects. And then in addition, there are modules in entrepreneurship and innovation. So those modules are delivered in partnership with our global partners from University of California, Berkeley, and we had a pleasure of hosting their faculty fellow Gigi Wang for entrepreneurship bootcamp in April this year at Keble College. So it was quite a transformative experience for some of our students as well. And as we know, America has a huge culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, and it's great to be able to bring it to Oxford as well. So it's quite an exciting course. As I say, it can be a stepping stone to your to a UK or American university, or even if you have an existing business idea or looking to be an entrepreneur or join a startup ecosystem. So this is something for a wide variety of young people and individuals. And we had even some students from Oxford University, some research students joining, who are looking to commercialize the idea, and we're just seeking guidance on what are the possible next steps. So quite a great experience. And this is something, as I say, which we are formally introducing from next academic year. And again, do reach out if you would like to inquire further. We offer mini consultations, so you can book those by visiting the website, and it will be either myself or one of the colleagues who are well versed on this information will be able to have an informal sort of discovery consultation with you. So this is something to keep in mind. And I think, yes, and next session, so this was our first session with Sean, so we kicked off our virtual open days, but next session will be tomorrow, Wednesday, and we will be with Joshua Roberts, our history tutor. So it will be at 2:30 British Summer Time. Follow our subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get notifications, and again, you can scan the QR code. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for your participation. And Sean, thank you so much. I know you you have your probably student waiting for you already. But it was a great pleasure, and thanks so much for all the insights.
Thanks, Katya. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.